Whenever we face problems, most people would tell us to think positive and will eventually find a way out. This advice is actually backed by the belief that things will be easier and more possible if we believe in ourselves and the good things to come. However, we cannot avoid moments when we run out of this positivity. We surrender at the face of doubt and cause things to get worse. This is what Don Miguel Ruiz wanted to address in his book, The 4 Agreements, a practical guide to personal freedom. In this book, Don Miguel Ruiz talks about the code of conduct, which he claims to be based on ancient Toltec wisdom. He believes that if we follow the 4 agreements, we get closer to the freedom of self-limiting beliefs. We can get liberation from the negative thoughts that limit us from growing in life. This isn't a new book, as it was first published in the year 1997. Oprah Winfrey was one of the main contributors of this book's success and fame, as she endorsed it on her show, The Oprah Winfrey Show, back in 2001. Since then, it has sold over 12 million copies in the U.S. alone and has already been translated to 48 languages. Its fame also helped it be on the New York Times bestseller list for over a decade. But what does Don Miguel Ruiz mean by Toltec wisdom? The 4 agreements in this book is said to be taken from a set of spiritual beliefs by the ancient Toltec people. These beliefs assisted them change their lives into a new experience of freedom, true happiness, and love. But before we get into the agreements, it is important to gain a basic understanding of them first. Don Miguel Ruiz explained how each of our actions are based on the agreements we have reached for ourselves, others, God, and even life itself. This may be in the way they behave, what is possible, and what is impossible. Ideally, agreements are there to help us, especially when it comes from a good place. But if it comes from a place of fear or doubt, it can cause you or the people around you harm or issues. Agreements can deplete one's emotional energy as well as diminish the self-worth of a person, which is why it's important to remove these self-limiting agreements that cause us suffering. In this book, Ruiz also explained how our society-imposed and fear-based agreements can alter the behavior and mindset of an individual. Hence, we need to get rid of them to reach true success. Another fundamental tenet of the book contends that a large portion of pain is self-inflicted, and that, for the most part, people have the power to change themselves and any unfavorable views that they may have about events in their lives. The author highlights factors that lead to sadness in life and suggests 4 wise resolutions that one can make with oneself to enhance general well-being. An individual can have a significant impact on their level of pleasure in their lives, regardless of the events outside of their control, by creating a pact with these 4 essential agreements. Now let's move on to the 4 agreements. Agreement 1, be impeccable with your word. The first agreement is the most important and at the same time the most difficult to follow. During this part of the book, Ruiz explained the agreement by getting into the meaning of the words first. The word impeccable comes from the Latin word peccatus, meaning sin, and the M in the beginning of impeccable is the Latin prefix that means without. According to Ruiz, a sin is anything that goes against oneself. This agreement just means that one should be impeccable or remain without judgment against the actions of oneself and others. In other words, this agreement tells us to focus on the importance and weight of communicating and speaking only of things that are honest and kind, thus putting much highlight on carefully choosing words before saying them aloud. Agreement 2. Don't take anything personally. This agreement can be very useful for those who have to deal with hurtful treatment from others most of their days. It teaches the readers to cultivate a strong sense of self so you don't have to rely on the opinions of others in order to be content and satisfied with their self-image. Aside from that, this agreement also enables readers to comprehend the idea that every person has a different worldview that affects how they perceive the world, and that a person's behaviors and ideas are a reflection of their own unique reality. Ruiz thinks that once a person quits taking things personally, feelings of rage, jealousy, envy, and even grief can reduce or disappear. Agreement 3. Don't make assumptions. A lot of people have already been hurt by assuming things. These assumptions trick us into believing that it will all happen one day, but more often than not, it only causes suffering. Because the individual making the assumption thinks it is a true depiction of reality, doing so can lead to stress and interpersonal conflict. According to Ruiz, asking questions and making sure that everyone involved is communicating clearly are 2 ways to avoid making assumptions. Agreement 4. Always do your best. The 4th agreement gives readers more clarity on making progress toward their personal goals. This agreement calls for incorporating the first 3 agreements into everyday life and for living fully. It entails exerting as much personal effort as one is able to do under the many conditions and circumstances that one might experience. According to Ruiz, if a person gives every situation their utmost effort, they can steer clear of regret and self-criticism. People can live a life free from grief and self-disgust by adhering to the first 3 agreements and doing their best in all areas of life. That's it for today's video. You can leave any of your questions, suggestions, or reactions in the comments section below. We'd love to hear from you. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell so you can get notified when a new video is up. Until next time, thank you for watching.